Hello and welcome to a Taylor's Tales podcast. This is Chris's Corner. I'm your host, Chris Taylor, and today we're joined by my best friend and colleague in the world, Alix Young. How you doing, Ali?
Hello, I am good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, bud. It's great to see
It's
you. Apart
good to
from
see you
the
too.
apart from the formal info and the sort of Taylor's Tales vibe, I've just started this and stuff like that, so it might feel a little bit forced at the beginning, but welcome to the podcast nonetheless.
Yeah, thank you. It's exciting to be here.
So when I first told you about this, what was your initial thought? Because like obviously it's quite a weird thing to do.
Yeah, so initially it was sort of a bit oh God. But then I thought, I don't know, be a bit of a laugh. Always have a chat and yeah, why not?
Yeah, man. I think the main reason I started this was purely just so I had more chances to talk to my mates. It's just an excuse just to have a chat with you guys and more
Yeah.
than anything, just have a bit of fun, talk some shit. I mean, one of the ones that's getting released tomorrow is with my mate Ollie Deacon, and we talk about Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring for 2.5 hours.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, there's a lot to chat about that.
Mate, I've made so many notes for part two. Ollie, if he's listening to this now, mate, you better be fucking prepared, bro. Like it's going down,
Just wait till you get to the Twin Towers. Oof.
mate.
Two towers.
Two towers,
Two
two towers.
towers? No, it's the Twin Towers. That's an entirely different podcast. Oh my god.
We've taken it to Alex Jones territory. I love this. This is going to be brilliant. So I'm just first off, thank you for doing this, mate. I know it's not like being in the public eye. Ollie didn't even have his image on here. My sister didn't have her image, so thanks for you didn't have to like use your
Yeah.
webcam. It's like it's straight
Well,
out there.
why not just go in, Just do it.
Yeah. So one of the first
Yeah.
things I was gonna so again, thank you. But one of the first things I was gonna ask was you made the big decision back when you were 18, which feels like a lifetime ago, I'll add.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you made the massive decision of moving to Australia, which till this day, I add, is one of the coolest things I've ever seen anyone do, let alone my best mate. What was like? How did you feel when you were first doing it, and how do you look back on it from now?
Yeah, so I guess for a little bit of context for anyone watching, my wife, she was Australian. Obviously, I grew up in England. We was chatting online for a while, and when I was 18, I sort of decided, hey, why not go meet her? And yeah, so that sort of happened. I met her, and we hit it off, and I basically decided to move over here, stay over here. So yeah, it sort of became my home. It was a very strange thing that happened, really. I mean, because it was very the kind of thing I would never really do. I was never really that type of person. I guess you'd know that from growing up with me. I was never the type to um, do anything adventurous like that. Um, but it was sort of just, I fell in love, and I felt like I had to pursue it, so I pursued it, and yeah, it ended up being, I guess the best decision of my life by coming over here.
I love it, and to me, and yes, growing up with you, but from my perspective, you were always somebody who had an inner strength. You just didn't initially like express that to other people. So like
Yeah.
I'd seen it in things that you'd loved, and I know this is a terrible comparison, but Manchester United when we were growing up, like you had so much strong opinions about some of the stuff that we had. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, exactly. And this is Elise, if you're watching this, do not kill me for comparing you to Manchester United. But
That's an insult these days. I mean,
it's an
jeez.
insult. But nonetheless, back in the pro, nonetheless, you had like an untapped ability to be able to converse in that, and like had strong opinions on stuff. And when you put your mind to something, you'd get it done. So the first thing is, I think this was just the first time where you had that, sort of crossroad in your life, You made a decision, you stuck with it, and I think kudos to you, mate, because there's very few people out there who have the ability to do that. And I was in awe straight off the bat. I genuinely was. At the time, I remember being stuck at Little Heath, like
Yeah,
thinking, my
yeah,
best mate's on the other side of the world doing one of the coolest things ever, and
yeah.
I'm sat
Well,
here stuck with Mister
I
in
think
English class.
yeah, yeah. I think I must have taken yourself and all of our other mates a bit by surprise when I sort of said, "Hey, I'm moving to Australia," because it sort of just came out of nowhere. It was like all of a sudden,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gone. See ya.
Mate, I think we were all shocked. I think there wasn't a single person who sort of knew what was going on. I do remember when you told me at the time. I think it was just I don't remember my initial reaction because we were talking about a day to remember or something silly like that beforehand. Like the
Yeah,
conversation just came out of nowhere. Going from music to talking about traveling to the other side of the world. Um, it's hard to put into words how crazy that course of action has taken.
yeah, yeah. It was. I mean, I don't know. I sort of look back at it now, and it's like it's. I think it sort of hits me a bit as I've grown older. It's like that was there was such a big step to take at such a young age, but at the time, at the time, I knew it was a big step, but I think because of like in my head, it's just like, oh, I'm in love, so I didn't really um, truly appreciate how big a move that was. But yeah, now it's sort of 7 years later, and it just it feels a lifetime ago, you know,
That's
that I made that
that's crazy.
change.
You've said that. That's really made me think. 7 years. My
Yeah,
God.
7 years. Yeah,
And now you have little Levi and at least all in the same household, all together. And I'd love to know, like now that you're at this different point, you're
yeah.
raising Levi. Do you see what would you do if you saw your son do a very similar thing? How would you react?
Oh, I'd probably be kind of upset, I guess. No, I think it's my parents were really good. They were happy for me. They knew it was a step that I had to make. I had my head set on this is what I want to do, and I think I always knew that if I didn't do it, then I would end up regretting it. So I was like, you know what, I've got to go. I've got to see if we hit things off. Um, and sure enough, we did. So it was just something that I just had to do.
Yeah, man. I love that. I think that your parents were always understanding anyway. I think that was always never going to be a big thing. So I was always proud of you for that. And always I think this is the big thing for me was that I remember the first time I came to visit you back in 2015, and up till that point you'd seen me probably once in I think it was like 2013, 2014 when you come back with Elise. I met Elise for the first time, and you came and visited me in Halfords, which is probably the most embarrassing things of my life.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
And I felt bad that I couldn't give you the time I wanted to give, and I had my manager basically giving me the stink eye in the corner of my eye.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
but I thought as soon as you described to me what you were feeling and how you two connected together, I was like, that's it. I could see what you were describing earlier in the sense of love, in the sense of your head was fixed on. It was real. It was there, and also I could see just the chemistry between the two of you was off the charts. And if you don't need my opinion alone. My dad immediately saw it. He didn't know. He doesn't know you as well as I do, but he saw immediately that there's seriousness there, and you know it was brilliant to just see you taking a different step in life. And for me, I at the time, I as soon as I saw that, I was like, ah, he's done it. He's clicked it. He's found his path. He's found his sort of
yeah.
direction. So that now that you've done this, is there that's a huge part of your life, but also now that you and me were both mid-20s. Do you see yourself just continuing this like big steps? Do you see any big more steps down the line?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I obviously, so yeah, Levi was born. That was almost 3 years ago now. We bought our own house 3 years ago, and we got married around, what, 3 years ago. So we sort of we took all those big steps that all sort of happened at the same time. Um, but I guess personally, I as you know, I've been getting quite into gym, working out, healthy lifestyle. Uh, so really, I guess just sort of continuing on that. Just self improvement, I think, is the key thing I'm sort of trying to work on. Um, just in terms of mentality, in terms of like self discipline, I guess. Um, yeah, that's a big thing. Because some days I'm great at it, and it's like, I'm ready to take on the world. Some days I get KFC and and have a donut, and it's like, ooh, it's probably shouldn't have done that.
Dude, it's an 80-20 split. Like, you've got to be able to give yourself that mentality. I totally agree with you. But for instance, like, you if you just do like the 100% all the time, you'll just eventually crash. And I did that myself. It's not fun.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like you burn out, and after a while, you just sort of start questioning why you're doing it in the first place. Uh,
yeah. You
I've
you you burn out, and then you make more questionable decisions.
Exactly. I mean, I remember coming back from my trip to Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam, and being like, I need to go in a bulk now. I've lost all this weight. I've got shredded. It's time to get
Yeah,
massive.
yeah,
And you just go from one end of the scale where you're like
yeah.
eating 2,000 calories to eating like 3,500, like 4,000. You're just going insane. And
And then the problem is if you don't do that bulk right, then you put on maybe you put on 100 grams of muscle, but then you also put on 5 kilos of fat, and it's like,
spot
oh
on.
no, now I need to cut the fat off. Like, it's just you go one way and then you got to go back the other way, and
Exactly.
yeah,
It is definitely what you said earlier, discipline sort of thing, and I love that you've brought that up because up to I think getting married in the first place, that's a huge thing, and it also takes self discipline to be able to find someone and you're also betting on yourself and this person as well. And in no short term, you're a winner in my mind. I think there's no losses to be made from this in any way, shape, or form. And I think that is the self-discipline and the fact that you've gone from somebody who I remember eating only sausages and chips growing up to somebody who
yeah,
now cares about this.
yeah, yeah. And there's still some sausages and chips in that diet, that's for sure. That's not me forgotten.
I
It's
love it.
just maybe there's some oats and some chicken breast in there,
Yeah, man.
and some other healthy options.
I love that. I think that you've realised something, and I remember you telling me that you wanted better for Levi. Basically, you wanted him to have that sort of lifestyle where he didn't feel restricted in what he ate, and he wanted to enjoy his food. And I saw immediately when we were chatting in your back garden playing football that something had clicked, like something was changing in your mind. You're like, oh,
Mm,
I don't want to stay this person. Do you think that's the
yeah,
case?
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess once again, for those who don't know, I I lost about 20 kilo overall. I lost in body fat. That was probably 2 to 3 years ago now. Um, so yeah, I mean, obviously, I was like, I don't know what I'd have been classified as, probably overweight, I guess, probably not obese. But yeah, I just remember being at sort of that weight and not really being. Well, I wasn't happy with the weight. I always wanted to be uh, more lean, uh, fitter, and healthier, just to feel better. I remember being at that weight, definitely feeling very stodgy a lot of the time, and you it just sort of brings you down. It definitely makes you feel a bit miserable. So I always wanted to sort of slim down after that. Um, which yeah, I sort of did, mainly through nutrition. Really, nutrition is just so crucial to not just if you want to lose weight, but
Mm.
just to being a healthier, happier, more fulfilled person. It's all about nutrition, and obviously not just calories, but what the actual calories you're consuming are as well is just so key. Because it's all well and good saying like, oh, hey, you need to have 2,500 calories a day. But if you're having 2,500 calories a day and that's because you've ate 5 donuts, well, you're probably not going to lose any weight,
Zero protein, all carbs and fat.
Yeah, just sugar.
I love it. No, I think you're totally right there. Micronutrients is definitely something that I try and sort of balance in my diet. And I don't know if you tried them recently. My suggestion for the protein pancakes. Did you find out what they were like?
Mate, I'll tell you what, that's like a staple. That is now staple in the diet. Oh, it's amazing. I've been, um, banana, scoop of protein powder, oats. I've been putting oats in it as well.
Yeah,
Chia seeds, and
nice.
I put peanut butter on it, which it actually tastes quite good with peanut butter.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Dude,
sounds kind of gross, but you know what? It's kind of good.
I would say to people like my I used to for like when I was trying to put on muscle immediately was having like protein powder, banana, and then peanut butter, and then a scoop of ice, and making a protein shake out of that, and
Yes.
that's like magnifique. It's just I'm making
Yeah.
the good food.
Yeah, for sure. Like you put the ice in it, it just gets that nice temperature. It's like, yes.
But I'm so glad you tried it, mate, because like
Yeah,
you're the only
yeah.
person I've actually got to try other than someone who's in the household at the moment. But I'm glad you enjoyed it,
It's so good. So good.
mate.
Since you told me about it, I'd say I've probably made about, I don't know, at least 10 batches of
I love it. That's awesome. Oh dear. That's crazy. I think that, for Levi as well, with dad, if you make like, 5 for him, 5 for you, and even at least like, it's just a fun breakfast.
well, I gave him some and he didn't like it. So
That's life. Maybe he's going anabolic.
yeah, I think he prefers, I don't know, like sometimes he'll want, a banana. Sometimes he hates bananas. Sometimes he'll want pasta. Sometimes he hates pasta. It's just, yeah, he's very, very yo-yo. I think it's a real toddler thing.
That's fair play. I mean, you can't knock him for that. At least he's trying stuff.
Yeah, he tries everything really.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very good like that.
No, good man, good man. You're bringing him into the world, and like even if he's just trying something, like that's I have no experience in child raising, so I have no idea what I'm talking about here.
And neither did I until he was born. I mean, geez, you get thrown straight into it. It's like you go, all these years with no idea, and then it's like, oh, here you go, have a baby. It's like, oh, okay, what do I do with this thing? Like, I don't know. Someone tell me what to do.
You know what? That's the description of what an adult should be. There is you are
Yeah,
just chucked in at the deep end. You're like,
I mean, like I was sort of thinking about that. It was actually earlier today. I was thinking how you go through school and you learn all these things that just become irrelevant in adult life, but you don't learn so many crucial things. And I think that sort of like yeah, sort of like what I was talking about before about just like self-discipline. You don't really learn anything about that sort of thing in school. You don't learn about the importance of like I've been listening to so much David Goggins recently, and callousing your mind. Like
yes.
it's just huge. It's so empowering, and it just makes you feel, I don't know, elevated, I guess. And there's so many people out there that will never get to experience that feeling because they're just so happy living in their sort of bubble. Um, and then once you get outside that bubble and you start doing these things that make you uncomfortable, it starts to make you realize, like, wow, you know what? Maybe I'm capable of more than I thought I was.
I couldn't have put it better myself, mate. You are spot on. I think that if I was to go back in time and give like 16-year-old Chris anything, it is what you're describing, that
Oh,
value.
100%. Same for myself. If I could go back in time, I think that's what I'd like to explain is like, yeah, callousing your mind, I think is huge. Putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. And it doesn't have to be something extreme. Like, I was feeling, I don't know, I was listening to some David Goggins earlier today, and I felt like just trying to do something to feel productive for the day. So if there's one thing I hate with working out, it's ab workouts. I absolutely hate training my abs. It's the worst. It sucks. It's horrible. I hate it. So I was listening to David Goggins, and you know what? I was listening to him, and I was like, I want to callous my mind. I want to do something that sucks. So I just thought about the thing that sucks the most. I was like, I hate ab workouts. I'm going to go do an ab workout. So I found some horrible, horrible 10-minute long torturous video, went through it as best as I could. And then I went and had a shower afterwards, and, I put it on cold, and I just felt wicked afterwards. I was like, yes, I did those things. I didn't want to do them, but I did them, and I feel amazing for doing them.
Yeah, man. I love it. I think that putting the sword in the flame, as he describes it, and taking it
Yes,
out, putting it back
yes,
in,
exactly.
it's just,
Oh, that's
it's
it.
spot on.
Yeah, you put yourself in these uncomfortable situations, and it's like he says about the sword and the flame. You put the sword in the flame and you bash at it. You bash and you bash and you bash until it eventually becomes what you want it to be. Um, and it's sort of like how he says he explains how exercise isn't a physical thing; it's a mental thing,
Yeah.
and it's very true. It's like the reason you don't exercise. Sometimes you could say, "Oh, I feel sore," but at the end of the day, the only person you're lying to is yourself. It's because you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Even if you're sore, you can still go do your workout. You can still do it. You're coming up with an excuse.
I totally agree. I think that the ability to push yourself further is his 40% rule. I've used that multiple times in my running, because you get past the 13-mile mark, I can tell you right now, you're going to feel the every sense of the word pain going through your entire
Yeah,
body.
yeah,
Um, it's funny you should bring up ab workouts, because I work out on my abs 6 times a week. So I do that every day. And I do it not because I love it, but because of what you just described, because it is
yeah, yeah.
the one thing that you have to do in order to maintain that self-discipline, even if you hate doing it.
Exactly,
And I'm
exactly.
not wearing the machine shirt for that. That's not the reference for that in any way, shape, or form. I am, but that's the thing that I discovered back in, I want to say 2017. So when we started talking about this is relatively recent, which is
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
crazy, because both of us discovered this at this very similar time of our life, very
Very
similar
true.
stage,
Yeah,
and have gone through this period of our time where we've gone from like relatively unhealthy human beings that I can tell you I wasn't, like, I was eating like
oh yeah,
Chinese
yeah,
every Friday. I was having like takeaways all the time, not looking after myself mentally either. And then going to this person who is working out every single day and
yeah,
does it for that reason. I don't know whether it makes me a better person or a worse person for doing that, but I do know that I'm a happier person, and
exactly,
I
exactly.
think that's the main thing, isn't it? Is that you, me, I think in the future, our friend groups, you start to realize, like, the people you're surrounded by, you're like, oh man, as I'm getting better, I'm starting to realize, is everyone else around me getting better? Are people happier?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and I'd like to think that I've pushed my friends the same as I push myself, but not to the point
yeah,
where
yeah,
it's like they don't want to be around me.
yeah. Well, it's almost motivating when you've got other friends who are in the same direction as you. Like, I guess after the talks we've had in the past, it's like it pushes me, because it's like I'm seeing you and you're doing great, and it's like, oh wow, like that just it's inspiring. It's like it just pushes me further to try and be the best me that I can be. And make those right choices.
Oh, yeah. I think that it's really difficult though. We're making this sound like it's, it's quite short, said in a few words, but this
Yeah,
period of time, it's a long friggin' time. It's a long
it
period of
is a
time.
long time, and that's the thing. And it's a roller coaster of ups and downs. I have days where I completely lose all motivation, and I'm like, oh, I don't feel like doing anything today. But then it's the weirdest thing, man. It's like I have one of those days, and I can chuck a David Goggins video on, and all of a sudden, it's like I'm gonna go run through a damn mountain. I am gonna do everything I can, and it's like I say, it doesn't even need to be the biggest thing. It can just be doing some housework around the house that I didn't want to do, or just going to the gym when I didn't feel like it.
Yeah, man.
Because it's almost more fulfilling when you do it because you didn't want to do it. Because it's like you're showing you're in control of yourself. Um, you're
Yeah.
not letting. It's just showing yourself how powerful you can be.
Yeah, I'm currently going through on the podcast Jocko Willink's leadership and strategy and tactics guide at the moment,
Yeah, I
and
did watch the first one. Yeah,
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 as you can see, it's like I'm trying to understand it as much as what he's described. But what you just
yeah,
described there is in the arrogance and humble chapter where he talks about how you're not above taking out the trash. You are still that person who's able
yeah.
to take out the trash. And by doing so, you show other people that you can do the basics before you can do the advanced. And
Yes, yeah.
I love that. I think that what you've just described is something that's taken me years to figure out, and you've done it in like, just by listening to David. And
Oh, well, these are things that I've I've only recently been getting back into David Goggins. I was listening to him, I don't know, a year or so ago,
mm,
but yeah, he's an extraordinary person, basically.
inspirational. And I
It's
talk, we,
yeah,
we, we talk about on my mate and me, Ollie, like he's fantastic to look at for the warrior perspective, but he's not like, he represents a human being because he's incomplete in other areas. And I think that's why everyone loves him so much, is because he's
100%.
shown you why he's not that perfect person and why he
Yeah,
is
yeah,
incomplete. And I think that that's what makes us, both of us, more like powered and motivated to
oh,
get stuff done.
100%. I mean,
Yeah,
he tells you his story. He tells you about being overweight and failing his Hell Weeks, his Navy SEAL Hell Weeks, and it makes you realize that holy crap, this crazy guy
yeah,
was not always this crazy guy, and it makes you think, you know what, he was like. It's like you think where you're at now is probably ahead of where he was at his bottom, and it's like if he can do that and go from right down the bottom to right up the top, who's to say that anyone else can't do that?
yeah. I totally agree. He was 24 when he was 300 pounds. We're 25.
Yeah,
So,
that's insane.
you know, it's that ability. And first off, we got to say though, he did have an abusive father. He did have a
He did.
horrible childhood.
He
In his
did.
book,
Yeah.
he describes how
Yeah.
all of this he's gone through. So to get to 24 in the first place is an achievement because, being
Oh,
beaten all that time. My dad is
100%.
one of my heroes. Like he is the most hardest working person I know, who doesn't ask anything from anybody. And although he's an opinionated person, I love him to death. And I can't imagine what it's like not to have that person in your life who you look up to, or that
Exactly.
person you do look up to
Yeah.
turn around and take a belt to you. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, oh man, and for your dad as well, like an entrepreneur
Yeah.
to look
Exactly.
up
Same
to as
same thing.
well.
Just
You know,
like a role model, someone to look up to, someone to think like, hey, this is the adult that I want to be like. You
yeah,
know.
yeah. I love that, and I think that for you and me, that I'm not knocking where we've got because obviously it's a tough place to get to, but it's at the same time there's still that extra mile. I think to myself every time I'm running, this road doesn't end. There isn't an end goal here. It is a never-ending road that I must continue to run until there isn't. Like, there's no happiness once you get to the end of the race. There's no achievement. This is why I sort of say to people, like, run marathons in your own time. Don't run them for the London Marathon or
Mm.
the just a race just to be able to put it on social media, because it's shallow. Once you've done that, it's over. There's
Yeah, yeah,
there's nothing more to get from that. And Goggins says that, doesn't he? He says, take it as the first step to getting better, but don't take it as the end, because there's so many 50-year-olds and 40-year-olds who are like, I'm done. Like, I've achieved
yeah,
what I need
yeah.
to achieve. And
That's it. You can't.
yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Otherwise, you can't get to your goal and decide that. Well, I've hit my goal. I'm done.
yeah,
Because then you're just gonna settle for mediocrity.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, that happens. I think people, um, they get goals in mind, and then they reach the goals, and then they decide, you know what, this will do.
yeah,
But I guess if you keep pushing and pushing and pushing, then yeah, it's amazing how far I think you can actually push yourself.
yeah. I it's crazy, because I wish I'd discovered him earlier, because
Yeah,
there's a lot of things I would have done differently. Definitely my A levels, where I got like CCD,
yeah,
and then
yeah, same.
just discovering his work in the middle of my degree was probably the best thing that could have possibly happened.
Yeah, yeah,
Because I took that mentality, and it got me a first class degree. And it was because I was like, different mentality to what I was when I was younger, but also that hard work pays off, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop. It's like that ever sort of rolling thing. And that was why I was asking, you know, you have continuously done these big goals, whether you've thought about it or not, and done these huge things. And the reason why I was asking what's the next step is because I just see bigger things happening for you.
yeah,
And I think this is just one of them, that you're just going to be like compound interest, just getting on
yeah,
the way
yeah,
to it. And
yeah.
I'm proud to be your friend, believe it or not, at the end of
Oh,
the day.
well,
So,
likewise.
but enough sentimentality. I am gonna get into the other end of it. We talked about fitness. We talked about you moving to Australia, and you're raising a kid right now, and you're saying you've jumped into it. The first thing that people talk about when they have a kid is that they want them to be safe. After reading Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, I saw one of the most recent ones was Rule 11, where they say don't interrupt kids who are skateboarding. So I pose this in a very strange way to you. Would you let your son skateboard? And if so, how far would you let him take it?
That's a very, very open question. I guess, I don't know. At the moment, if he went out skateboarding down the road, seeing as he's 3 years old,
Yeah,
I probably wouldn't be too impressed. I'd probably
I
say,
should have clarified. I don't mean at 3 years old. I do mean when he
yeah,
is later in life.
yeah, I figured that.
Oh dear.
So yeah, probably what, like around the ages of like early teenage years
Yeah,
ish.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Spot on, spot on.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, geez. I mean, I'd probably say why not.
Yeah,
I think Australia is very different to England.
yeah,
I think back to us, uh, our childhoods in Reading, and I don't know, the thought of a 12-year-old roaming the streets in Reading is kind of a bit. Eh,
I'm glad
I
you said
mean,
that. Yep,
yeah, because there's a lot of you know, for lack of a better word, chavs. I
yep.
remember. I remember sort of
Very,
everywhere
very
really.
dodgy folk.
And I mean, like I remember walking home some nights, like maybe we went down, I was down the pub with my mum and dad, and you'd come home at night, it's maybe 11, 12,
Mm,
and you'd be walking the streets, and then there's a group of three guys with their hoods up,
mm,
uh, and it's very intimidating. And, they might not be trying to be intimidating. It's, that's just what they choose to wear. They just choose to hang out, whatever. And it's probably more the media that sort of got us to this mindset of like, oh, these guys are up to no good. although I guess at the same time, we grew up in these schools, and I'm sure a lot of us have had bad altercations with people who sort of fit into that like demographic, I guess. Um, but then in Australia, you don't really get that so much, especially where I live. I can't say I've ever felt intimidated walking the streets, like, at all. So yeah, I'd be happy for him to really. I think it's important. I think it's that that I guess children go out and do things. So often these days, kids are, stuck indoors playing Fortnite,
Yeah.
playing on their iPads. Just, you know, that's just where children, where like society's taken children, I guess. It's not necessarily a completely bad thing. I mean, it's just the moderation of how it's done. And
Yeah.
you know what? Like, let the kids play the games, but let them have their outside time as well. Just have a mix of it, I think.
Yeah, I think that was a perfect answer, by the way. You may not have known that, but that was brilliant because what you've
Okay,
just
well, that's good.
described, what you've just described is environment, number one. That's like key to any kid. Like environment and safety to an extent is exactly what you just described in my mind. Is that where we were raised? Is that parts of town were dodgy, parts of
Yeah,
town weren't so. So
yeah, yeah,
there's very nice neighbourhoods, but there's certain parts of Tilehurst and Reading that you would avoid. And I know for a fact that when I was younger, that I wouldn't, wander down the Oxford Road at night. That wouldn't have been a good idea.
well, exactly, yeah, yeah, you
um,
wouldn't.
and so that's what you're describing in Australia. I felt the exact same way. That's why I want to move out there, because it is, in my mind, a place where I could feel safe to live, but also it's got a fantastic culture in how it raises people in a very
Yeah,
positive
yeah,
manner. What you
yeah.
didn't mention to say is that there's quite a coldness in England. There's quite
Oh,
a lack of
100%.
saying hello.
Yeah,
And I would say that you've also described in that sentence as well is that the balance. There's certain times when you would say yes and no, but your ability to understand that it will help him grow. And by the way, I was just using skateboarding as an example. Football doesn't matter, whatever. Like,
yeah, yeah,
you could have anything. It's just that ability for him to understand failing isn't necessarily the end, but failing forever is, because you and me both know what it was like playing on a football team where it was an endless
oh,
just failure, just
yeah,
constantly pounding. There's only so far you can take that, because if a kid is just told you're going to lose every week for an entire season and you're going to get one win, they'll never get better. Their constantly morale is just consistently low. And so I think that what you've described there for Levi is a very positive environment where he's given a little bit of a challenge, a little bit of step by step. I'm hoping for his sake more than anything else, as well as
yeah.
yours. A little bit of
Like,
mental sanity.
well, at the end of the day, my goal for Levi is just to raise him to be a better person than I am. I think that's
Mm,
all every parent should just strive for, is to raise your child better than you. See the things you do well and try and teach them and nurture them, and see the things you do bad and try and steer them away from like those bad tendencies, I guess. Because, like, I think that's important, is to look at what bad aspects of yourself, and just being conscious of that, and saying that, yeah, like, like being a night field manager, sometimes I'll sort of say, maybe I'll say something, or I'll react a certain way to something that's happened, and then afterwards I can look back at it and say, oh, you know what, I shouldn't have said that, or like,
mm,
I shouldn't have done that. I should have reacted differently. And I guess it's about, yeah, having the I can't think of the word, just being able to look at yourself and say, you know what, I'm not perfect.
yeah.
um
Perspective.
that thing, yeah, perspective. It's like, I did that thing wrong,
Yeah.
and next time I'll do better.
Yeah. I think
Mm.
that's all you can ask yourself. Could just this is another rule. I know I keep bringing 12 rules up for life, but you know it's perfect in this scenario because rule 4 is just don't compare yourself to other people. Compare yourself to who you are today and who you were
Yeah.
yesterday. Um, and by doing that, what you're describing is that little Levi, he's, you know, in very scientific term, a smaller copy of you. And so what you've just described is the sense that you're trying to raise him better than you. And that's it. I think it's a good thing to strive for because in the sense of today's society, there's so much mediocrity going on. And I don't it's really hard to say to the general public, right,
Oh,
there's a
I
lot of
yeah,
mediocre, but like if you
couldn't
just
agree more.
ask for a little bit more, maybe that's it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing. We live in a very uh I mean it's sort of like the whole David Goggins thing, you know, how he says that, you know, most people don't seek discomfort. Most people are just, they're gonna take their comforts. They're gonna go home, they're gonna go sit down, they're gonna go watch the TV, they're gonna get their takeaway, they're gonna have their soda because it's comfortable and they want to be comfortable. And the ironic thing is, it's like you have all these comforts, and you know, so many people do this, and this is why, um, you know, obesity is such a problem, is because that so many people just want to be comfortable, that they have all these comforts, and it's like, oh, this makes me feel good, but then in reality, it's actually sort of making you feel worse.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the fact that you can order like food on the internet and have it arrive within the next like 30 minutes to your door
Yeah.
without having to step outside of your house is kind of like a blessing and a curse at the same time, isn't it,
Oh,
really?
exactly. It's
Uh,
like Wall-E,
yes.
you know,
Yeah, yeah,
movie.
yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly. Perfect.
Yeah, just like that. And
It's
that's where we're
madness.
going.
Don't. That scares the hell out of me. The fact that you've described how you're gonna help Levi instead of hinder him, like God. Oh my goodness. That's like my nightmare right there. Is having like my child come up and tell me, "Daddy, I want more food," and I'm just like, "No, please,
No.
help me." That's. But I do realize that it's also not in our control. There's certain things we can control, and there's certain things we can't. And what you've just described, I find that we're on a very similar wavelength in how we see society. So that's always
Yeah.
makes it a lot easier for you and me to get on. But what would you say to the people who aren't necessarily in our perspective and are currently having a tough time because the economy is down and
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff going on where you and me, we both have jobs, we're both, you know, lucky enough to be in this position. What sort of would you say to them to sort of maybe help themselves mentally as well as in business?
I think the most important thing is just trying to take sort of these steps um, for improvement. I remember, I think the very first step I made, um, you know, back when I first started losing the weight, was
Mm,
I remember watching a YouTube video about the importance of drinking lots of water in the day. And at the time, I wasn't drinking much water.
mm,
So all of a sudden, I was like, oh, water's okay. I guess I'll give that a go. And I just started drinking water. And you know what? I kept drinking water, and before long, I was drinking 2 liters of water a day.
mm.
And like that's a big step, literally just drinking some water. And then before long, I decide, oh, you know what? I used to eat white bread. And I said, oh, you know what? Like multigrain bread's not bad.
Mm.
I can eat multigrain bread. And I started eating multigrain bread. And it's like you take these little steps bit by bit. And then it just starts to change your whole mentality on everything. And you know, you still make those bad decisions, but if you're making lots of good decisions with bad decisions, then it evens out quite well, really. But you know, you can't. I think a key part is like you can't just snap your fingers and completely change your lifestyle, because it won't stick.
Yeah.
It's about, like, you know, so many people go on diets, and they go on their diet, they're on it for a week, and then they say, I can't do this anymore, this is boring. It's like, well, yeah, no wonder you're eating cardboard, and like it's not going to work, you know. You've got to find you got to make it interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's that consistency. What you just described there, the small steps, that's brilliant. I think that that's something I wish I'd taken when I first got into this. When I
Mm,
first got into fitness, I was like, I'm going to change it all around. I'm going to start working out
yeah,
every
yeah,
single day. I'm going to be eating every single day. And
yeah, yeah,
I burnt out. I At the end of it, I couldn't play football anymore because I was injured all the time because I was running 40 miles a week and then also trying to play football. And then I was weightlifting 5 times a week on top of that. And then also trying to eat as minimum calories. So you can imagine your body just exhausts itself and collapses.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so that's not the way to do it. The way is how Ali's described it. So listen to Ali on this one.
A little bit at a time.
Little bit at a time.
But
But
that's
it's
if you're starting, like, yeah, if you're starting from scratch, I think
yeah,
that's key. Is that you don't expect don't expect change straight away. And same, if you're trying to get healthier and if you're trying to lose weight or if you're trying to get strong and build muscle, it takes a long, long time. If you
right.
if you're
I'm
trying to
still
lose
going through
weight,
that.
yeah, if you're trying to lose weight, if you lost a kilogram a week, then you're doing great.
Yeah.
You're trying to build muscle, you know what? It's hard. It takes a long
Mm.
time, and you've got to follow a strict regime. You've got to train smartly, using specific split programs, and yeah, it's a long process.
Totally agree. I think that one thing that people forget is that you need to let that muscle sort of recover as well. Is that in order
Exactly.
for it to grow?
Yeah.
And initially, when you're first starting out, it's either so I've seen quite a few different types of people, but some type of person could be like, I hate the gym. I don't want to be in the gym. It's like, for me, I love the gym. It's a great environment.
Yeah.
Miss it thoroughly at the moment. Something that really hard
Yeah.
to be without.
I
But
bet.
at the same time, you've got to be able to cater for both sides. And so there's this sort of, what I have found is that you can semi-replicate the ability to work heavy amounts of reps using a lighter weight.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily get you to a super, you don't build huge amounts of muscle, but you can get better than you already were. So even as a
Yeah.
beginner, even in your first like 2-3 years, I still think that you can maintain your muscle mass just by using home workouts during this
Yeah.
period
Well,
of time. So
yeah.
it's
There's all sort of like calisthenic work, just pure body weight. You push up, pull ups, dips. There's just all these things you can just do at home, which you could still get pretty ripped just doing those. But personally, I find you know doing any sort of exercise with the barbell or dumbbells, I don't know, I love it.
Yeah, I
It's
get that, and I'm very similar, and I definitely I'm getting a little sad and depressed about us talking about it right now because it's making me wanna be back there. But that's life. You take it with a pinch of salt every now and then. But I was going to ask, so you said before when we last talked that your gym is relatively close by. You have to drive to get there. What's the sort of environment like there? Have you got like lots of different machines, or is it very basic, some stuff like that?
Yeah, so it's not a huge gym,
Mm,
but it's like reasonable. It's got enough equipment, you know, to sort of suit me really.
mm,
It's with my work. I only start my work at 3 p.m. each day, so
mm,
I'll generally go to the gym at sort of midday, 12-ish, 11.
mm,
Um, and it's normally very quiet. There might be two other people in the gym,
mm.
and they've
Perfect.
got barbells, they've got their squat racks, they've got cables. There's really everything that I want from a gym, really.
Oh man, that sounds awesome. As soon as I heard the word squat rack, I was like, yes, we're good.
Yeah, yeah, squats, deadlifts. The I yeah, I love the compounds, the big
Mm.
heavy compounds. They are the most satisfying things. No, you hit a big deadlift, it's like, oh,
That's gonna sound so good over the audio. Oh dear, but I totally agree. The one thing that I stopped doing for a while because I was like sweating like a bucket after doing deadlifts was taking pre-workout before I'd go do it, because there's one thing that pre-workout does to you if you do deadlifts and you're lifting super heavy, is that you just look like you're like all your veins are just popping out. It's disgusting. It's just yeah. So I had to stop doing that for a while. Kids, don't take too much pre-workout, otherwise you end up like a veiny monster.
Jeez, how
But
much pre-workout you taking? Oh my gosh.
dude, when I was working at an unnamed company, I was like having 2 coffees a day. I was taking pre-workout before I went to the gym. I was having like monsters on the weekend. It was not healthy, and it was because I was
Yeah,
like requiring it to stim myself up for the amount of exercise I was doing. So there's that. So a lot of people do, my drug of choice is caffeine, but there is a limit to how much you can take.
yeah, that's for sure.
But do you I was gonna ask, have you heard of the Nautilus machine at all?
Nautilus, it rings a bell, but what does that machine do?
It's Dorian Yates's favorite back machine, basically. I don't know if you've heard of Dorian Yates at all, but he is
Yeah, rings
Britain's
a bell.
he's Britain's like Mr. Olympia. He won the Mr. Olympia 6 times.
He did a Joe Rogan podcast, I think, didn't he?
He did as well, yeah, and
Yeah,
he's one of the most honest guys. He talks about how now that he's no longer in bodybuilding, he talks about a lot of going through DMT trips, etc. Going more functional working out. But when he was Mr. Olympia, and he still does a lot of bodybuilding, his favorite back exercise is using this Nautilus machine, and it's quite an old school piece of gym equipment, but I love like how it looks. And one thing that it doesn't do is it gets your arms up here. And for those listening, I'm moving my elbows up into the sky and moving them up vertically, and then you move them down, and you're not using any of your bicep movement basically at all.
yeah,
And it just gets you to use the lats. And so all you're doing is you're just tiring the lats out the entire time. And the only way I've been able to recreate this using free weights is through overhead pullovers, but they still use your
oh yeah,
triceps when you're
like
doing it.
triceps. Yeah,
Yeah, but the problem is you've got to like hold over a bench or a chair. But
yeah,
you can get that maximum stretch if you do get a relatively weight you can accompany by putting 2 hands underneath it and really stretching
yeah,
the lats.
yeah,
And that's something that's I've been researching, like as I've been developing free fitness and as I've been going through this sort of fitness sort of program, because I've been doing the same program now for like must be over a year now. And it works, but I do miss. There's parts of me that you know. There's only so much you can do with free weights and not
yeah,
without some of the gym equipment. And whenever Dorian Yates
yeah.
talks about the Nautilus machine, I'm always like, oh my god, yes. So how you talk about the deadlifts and the squat rack, man,
Yeah,
like that's
yeah.
exactly. But if you were to choose one day and one part of the body to train, what's your favorite part?
Oof. Yeah, good question. Very good question. I mean, chest is always good. Like, bench press is good. You feel good after a bench press, and
Yes.
flies as well. Cable flies. When you feel that real contraction in your pec, that's
Yeah.
satisfying. And I mean, even back, like training your lats. Rows, barbell rows, like
Love
they
it.
give a very good muscle contraction and lat pull downs.
Yeah.
And even tricep push downs. That's another
Mm.
satisfying exercise. I don't know why, but when you just and you feel it in your triceps, it's like,
Dude,
yeah,
as soon as you get that horseshoe and you're able to just get the like, I love doing that in the
yeah,
mirror because my entire arm just like shapes into that horseshoe. It's like ah ha
yeah,
ha,
yeah.
just that
It's there.
muhaha. Just so you'd say that sounds to me like you like a push day basically. You're into like a chest,
Yeah. Well,
triceps,
I do a
shoulder.
yeah. I do push pull leg split.
Mm,
So
mm,
on my push. I do chest, shoulder,
Mm,
triceps, and on my pull, I do basically back and biceps.
mm. Which is
So
a standard training sort of, sort of program, and it works perfectly,
yeah,
doesn't it, when you need
I
that
think
amount of time?
yeah, from all the splits I've done, I think a push pull leg split is my favorite split
Yeah.
because it gives you enough time to recover, but it gives you enough volume in that, if you train 6 days a week, then you're still hitting your muscle groups a lot during the week.
Yes. High
Um,
volume.
yeah, whereas if you do like, some people do like like I think it's a bro split,
Yeah, bro split.
maybe
Classic.
like a chest day. You have
Yeah.
chest day, you have arms day, you have back day, you have shoulder day, and it's like that's all well and good. But then at the end of the day, you're training your chest once a week. If you
Mm.
do a push pull legs, you're training your chest, you know, 2 to 3 times a week. So you're just getting more volume
Yes.
that way.
I totally agree with you. I think that I do like, see, at the moment, because I'm at home and I don't really have access to a gym, the bro split only works within a gym, from what I've seen.
Yeah,
For me personally, I don't think that it works outside of a gym. But for me, I've created this thing called the Tenny Taylor split, basically, which allows me to combine my running with my weights, basically. And it's, you train your each body part sort of 2 to 3 times a week, like you're talking about with the push pull leg. Except I do on Mondays, I do chest, biceps, and back, and then on Tuesdays and sorry, that's Mondays and Thursdays I do chest, back, and biceps. Tuesdays I do shoulders, triceps, and legs, and then on Wednesdays and Sundays and Fridays I do just any sort of, it can range, but normally it's like a 4 mile run on the Wednesday and the Friday, and then a 12 mile plus run on the Sunday so that I can recover.
yeah,
And it sort of, it's built me up because it's that high volume. And I think what you're doing with the push pull legs is like it's keeping you in the gym, it's keeping that consistency. So it's basically
yeah,
the same
yeah,
thing. It's the only thing that I've done it is so that I can do more running, basically, and be
yeah,
able to
yeah.
increase that sort of volume down the line. But
And giving yourself still enough rest days for that muscle to recover
exactly.
as well. Because like sometimes you get people who are new to gym and they don't understand the rest. And like there's people I've spoken to in the past, and like I'll talk to them and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I trained chest today," and then it's the next day and it's like, "Oh, you go to the gym today? Oh yeah, I did some bench press." And it's it's like, "Oh mate, I don't know if I'd be training chest every single day. I don't think that's gonna
For
go
those who are listening, Ali's face when he was saying that was just utter disappointment in this person, whoever they are. I love it. That's
well.
exactly. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's because people don't understand at the start, and I'd have been exactly the same as
Yeah.
all of us. We all started at this point where we didn't understand how muscles grow. I remember literally thinking, like even progressive overload. Most people don't understand progressive overload. They think that just lifting weights you're going to gain muscle, and it's like, well, in reality, you have to progressively overload.
Yeah.
You have to consistently lift heavier and more weight.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you won't build muscle.
Yeah.
So you have to push, and yeah, and that's just I don't know something that comes with time and experience. I think.
It's very tough to sort of get from. There's a point where you you sort of plateau. I've done this where I've got to a point where I'm lifting extremely heavy weight, and then my form sort of deteriorated. That's
Yes.
my own
Yeah.
fault, and that's because
Mm.
there's a little bit of ego there where you're like, I need to
Yes.
lift this weight. Uh,
Yes. Oh man, so true. Yeah.
have you, what's how have you dealt with that? Because I personally
Mm.
haven't actually, I haven't addressed this yet, but I got
Yeah.
to that point and I haven't lifted heavier than that since. So
Okay.
what would you do
So
from there?
I got a good answer for that.
Mm,
So recently, one of the things I can't remember. I was watching a YouTube video of someone,
mm,
and having spoken to personal trainers, a lot of what people say is that you really need to vary your like RPE, like RPE. So
Yeah, leaving one rep in
like
the tank sort of thing.
yeah, well yeah. So I generally train at RPE, I guess RPE 75%.
Yeah.
So say if I'm doing bench press, my 1 rep max at the moment would be about 75-ish
Mm, mm,
kilo.
mm.
So I train on about 55 kilo,
Yeah.
and I might get 8 to 10 reps. But what I've been doing recently is I've been following this new sort of program where, sort of week by week, 1 week I'll train at a lower RPE.
Mm.
Some weeks it'll be 70 or 65, and then another week 75, another week 85.
Yeah.
So I've got my 85% in there, and that week maybe I'm using 60 kilo on my bench or 65 kilo on my bench.
Mm.
So you have heavy days where you're lifting heavy and you're lifting low reps. You might only manage 2 or 3 reps,
Mm.
but it's still giving you that chance to do some heavy reps. But you're not always doing heavy, and then you're going back to light, and maybe I'm doing 50 kilo bench and I do 15, 20 reps. It's
I'm going to give that a
yeah,
go, mate. I'm going to give that a go. I'm going to write that down and see if I can improve it, because in the coming months, I'm hoping to have access to a gym in the over the
yeah.
next,
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
yeah, fingers crossed, basically. Because although the UK has opened up, I'm in the middle of nowhere at the moment,
Yeah, yeah.
and that should improve.
Understandable. Yeah,
But that is so well structured how you've put that, and I think that's follow. For those who don't understand like the percentages, Ali's how he's talking about it is that the idea is that you're putting in that percentage in your workout, and you're taking that effort. I would say the effort into those weights. So basically saying that if I'm lifting, my maximum on a bench is like 90 kg or 100 kg, then my 85% is less than that at 25%.
yeah,
And so you go
exactly.
from that.
Yeah,
But
so
that's
yeah,
that's taking ego out of the picture, and I love that you've said that. That's perfect.
yeah, and you're so right about the whole ego lifting thing. That's such a thing where you think, you're almost cautious of people watching you in the gym. So you're like, oh, I've got to, I don't want to put a light weight on here because people are going to look at it and think, oh, I'm weak. When in
Mm,
reality, it's like, if you're lifting heavier weights and you're not getting that contraction in your muscles, or you're cheating the rep, you're using a different muscle to do it.
mm.
Well, the only person you're cheating is you're cheating yourself. It's
Yeah, man.
like you see people doing their bicep curls and then they're oh, oh, and it's like,
Basically flipping back and forward.
yeah, and it's like they're using momentum, and it's like, what? Yeah, maybe you're doing a 50, 60 kilo bicep curl, but it's not
Yeah,
a real bicep curl. It's
I totally agree. I got a story for you. You'll probably laugh at this, but yeah, I was on the incline, and basically the day before, I thought, oh, you know what? I'm not gonna eat today before I work out. I'm just gonna go in, with zero sort of carbs in the tank.
yeah, yeah,
This was when I was experimenting with my diet and putting on mass. And I went in and I was like, okay, I'm going to go from 60 kg incline to 65 or 70 kg incline. And I'm going to like friggin' do it for, I think at the time I was doing 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps and just trying to rep that out. And I
yeah,
got to
yeah,
the final set, and I remember just feeling like I got the bar up to here, and I was just like physically shaking. My arms were just in the air, just like when you're vibrating, you're like your
yeah,
entire body's
yeah,
just like, and I remember putting the bar, and it looked like I was just gonna crash it down. And this kid who must have been like 18 years old, clearly on doing some sort of gear, because he was like lifted insane amounts of weight with like that sort of look. He was like, he just came up to me and he said, dude, I genuinely thought you were going to die there. And I was like, oh no, oh no, what have I done? What have I done? What have I, this youngster, this 18-year-old child, man, has come over to me and basically ruined my day. And
Yeah, but that's,
You know,
I don't know, man. That's like almost a compliment, you know? You're pushing yourself to the point you're almost dead. That's like, that's Goggins, man. That's Goggins.
but my problem is, man, is that like if I do that, I don't look good doing it. I look like terrible, like just like my eyes are red, and like I'm, not looking strong in that final rep.
Well,
So
it's
there is that.
it's sort of like a deadlift though, you know? Sometimes you do a deadlift and if you're struggling to get the deadlift up, but you get it up,
Mm,
it's still like you feel good. It's like,
mm,
and I don't know. I think it's almost admirable. Like if I see someone in the gym and they are really pushing out a rep and they get the rep out, it's like, yeah, fair play to you. You're pushing yourself. It's good.
yeah, it can be, and but don't do what I've done, where
Yeah,
I
probably
have
don't. Yeah,
don't do that, and also don't do where you've done so many deadlift reps, because I remember being addicted to deadlifts and not being able to bend over because your lower back is so tight. That's
yeah,
also,
yeah.
don't
That's
do
probably
that.
not ideal. Yeah.
This is great advice at the moment. You're coming in with the good stuff. I'm telling people what not to do. You're telling people what to do at the moment.
Well, it's a good mix then, isn't it?
It's a good mix, good balance. I love it.
Yeah.
But so we've talked about goals. We talked about family, love, kids, gym, like everything. Do you see yourself in the future just continuing this? Do you see it ever changing? Would you change anything? That would be my main question.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, just continuing to grow,
Mm,
getting stronger. I think that's big. I, I've got sort of long-term goals in terms of like gym,
mm,
um, doing 100 kilo bench press. That's
mm,
a big one.
mm.
At the
That's very
moment, I'm
achievable. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm very lean at the moment. I'm about 65 kilo,
Mm,
so a lot of my lifts are for my body weight are reasonable.
mm.
Maybe getting to a 100 and like a 140 kilo deadlift. That would be one of my next goals. Yeah, like bench and deadlift are big ones. Yeah, I'd say that they're my main things at the moment. But yeah, in terms of like this lifestyle,
Mm,
I sort of do see myself living a healthy lifestyle for the rest of
mm.
my life.
Yeah.
It's just because when you don't, if you start to lose motivation and you start to fall back down into a bit of a rut, you start to feel sort of miserable because of it. And then when you pull yourself out of it, you're like, oh wow, I feel so much better.
Mm,
And it's just, yeah, it's just such a strange thing because it's like you seek comfort by doing all these
yeah.
things that aren't good for you, um, but your brain tells you to do them.
Mm.
And then when you avoid them and you do the things you don't want to do, it makes you feel better. It's such a
It,
weird thing.
it's exactly that though. It's doing the stuff that you don't want to do and progressing from there. I think that your goals extremely achievable. I want to see them by the time I come to Australia. I want to come there. And I want to help you do them.
I don't
That's
know
far
about
too
I don't
soon,
know.
but
I
you know
mean,
what I mean.
yeah, the 140 deadlift, maybe the bench press might not be quite there.
Yeah, but we'll get there one day, and that's all that matters. Is that
Yeah,
you have those goals, you want to achieve them one day, and like you said earlier, small incremental steps to get there, and
yeah.
you'll be keen from there. If you had a piece of advice for future generations to come, and this is, a bit too deep for this podcast, but whatever,
Yeah.
what would you give to the future generations with all this technology coming on, with all of this distractions, all this comfort coming out their way? What would you say to them?
I think the best quote is to seek discomfort. And it can sound kind of empty on its own until you actually try, until you until you actually try and seek discomfort and you realize the power that has. And you just go in the shower and just have a cold shower, turn the tap on cold and just get in and just stand there and just it's horrible. It sucks. And you want to get out, but you don't get out. You stand there and you say, I can take whatever's thrown at me, I can just take it. And if you can do that, you know what? All you're doing is standing in a cold shower, but it's not about what you're actually doing. It's about your head, and it's about being able to control your head. And if you control your head in that moment, then think about all the other uncomfortable things you don't want to do. It comes back to the whole callousing your mind. And that's how David Goggins got to where he was, and that's what I'm trying to do to get to where I want to be. I'm trying to callous my mind. I'm trying to do things to make me uncomfortable, because the more and more you do it, the more and more stronger you'll become from it.
Mate, that is the perfect way to end the podcast right there. That's a brilliant answer for future generations. Listen to Ali. Don't do what I've done. This has been a Taylor's Tales podcast. This is Chris's Corner. I'm your host, Chris Taylor. Callous your mind, motherfuckers. See you later.